Thank you.
So with the drama in Europe dominating the headlines, investors are still piling into defensive dividend-paying stocks. While they might seem like a sure bet, we have someone who says, beware, dividends can be dangerous.
Really dangerous? Well, let's find out more about that. Joining us now to help you right those wrong trades, Lee Munson, founder and chief investment officer of Portfolio LLC. It is a crowded trade. People have been piling into dividend trades. And what is it about them that you feel is now dangerous? That's a pretty strong statement.
You know, I think what makes them dangerous is a bubble that's forming. Everything last year was dominated by the top performance of dividend-paying stocks, as well as long-term treasuries. So I think that people have to remember, if we get any type of growth in the second half of this year, a lot of fund managers, a lot of people are going to be moving out of that trade and into things that are more cyclical, that have more leverage.
But even if they're good, solid dividend stocks like J&J, for example?
Absolutely. You know, J&J is one of the best-run companies in the world. But if too many people get in there and the valuations go too high, they're going to be very disappointed as institutional money is going to flow to the cyclical sector that definitely has more earnings leverage. Because at the end of the year, we're going to have earnings for 2013, and the money is going to chase where the growth is versus what's just a well-run company.
What would you do then, knowing what you know and believing what you believe? If dividend payers are not the exact trade, what is the trade that you feel is right versus wrong?
Well, what I think is right is going for a cyclical name. So, for instance, you might want to look at things that are based on the recovery in jobs or the recovery in housing. I mean, your last guest was talking about this recovery in retail. Now, that's not exactly the place that I like to hang out in, but I think it's a very good example of something that's cyclical. A Caterpillar, a John Deere, those are the type of things that we like. Now, if you really want to get a little bit riskier, you look at something like Wyndham Hotels. This goes from a Super 8, Howard Johnson, all the way up to luxury resorts. If we have more jobs in the economy, people are going to want to travel, they're going to want to take vacations. Hertz is another great name. It's business travel. They are using innovation to try to lower their fleet rates, and if you have good revenues in your corporation, the way to keep those revenues up next year and going forward is going to be face-to-face business meetings. So remember, revenues are high.
By the way, we started talking about Europe. Let's talk about Europe for a second here. Of course, some of these dividend stocks like Telefonica, which is a Spanish telecom company, 10% dividend. That looks pretty good, but, you could lose the whole ball of wax if it goes down like Spain does.
Right.
Mercedes, though, is an interesting bet, is it not? Because it is a foreign company. It is influenced by the European crisis. However, it may be a good bet.
Absolutely. I would just call it the Mercedes-Benz rule. And that's how you have to look at Europe. First of all, look at Mercedes as, number one, it's German. Number two, it doesn't have an excessively high dividend like Telefonica that's trying to lure in, the dumb money, so to speak. And thirdly, it's really a global company, and it's priced for death. It's priced for, a deep recession, even maybe a depression. But we all know that if America can even have zero growth this year and just increase jobs a little bit, we have the oldest fleet rate in decades. I mean, the average car in the United States is over 10 years old. That's a big difference than 10 years ago.
Now, we did see, though, that it was auto sales that dragged down the retail sales number for January, meaning the weakness in auto sales. Do you think that's just a blip? Because they've actually been doing pretty extraordinarily well.
Absolutely. If you look at fourth quarter, that was one of the shining stars in the GDP numbers was auto sales. And so I think that you have to look at January, might be a little slow. I think that's going to pick up. And again, more people getting jobs are going to have more confidence in buying a new vehicle. And quite frankly, we do have a lot of people in this country who do very well, and that old Mercedes, they're going to trade it in, and Mercedes-Benz is going to benefit from that.
By the way, some people have been forecasting that by the end of the year we could have growth rate as high as 3 to 4%. Jamie Dimon did that recently in an interview with Charlie Gasparino. Do you think we have that kind of growth potential?
Absolutely. I think that at least for the second half of 2012, 2013, I'm not going to prognosticate, but I really think that we can get, what we refer to as above trend growth. So that means maybe, 2.5% is about, the GDP trend. And so I think that we can actually get maybe 0.5% higher, so maybe 3%. 3.5%, 4%, I think we're dreaming a little bit, but I definitely think 3% by fourth quarter of this year. It's totally doable. It's not without reason. And again, we're coming off a low base in housing, a low base in jobs. We just need that marginal change. I think people are going to be very happy at the end of the year.
Lee Munson, something about people from New Mexico. They're just naturally optimistic.
Why not?
Absolutely.
I'm loving that. Thank you,
Good stuff.
Lee.
Thank you, Lee. Lee Munson.